that the only people who don't understand the energy crisis are the governments, state and federal. And that's not to say the world, someone's not working for me here, but that's not to say the world or us aren't in crisis. Now, I'm speaking of the energy crisis. As Bjorn Lomborg reminded us recently, we're not doing too badly on other fronts. And basically he said average global life expectancy has more than doubled since 1900. Health inequality has declined. The world's more literate. We're living in one of the most peaceful times in history. In the last 30 years, average per capita global income has almost doubled. There have been widespread reductions in poverty, yet we're told climate change will wipe out the planet. And governments have swallowed this. We've demonised coal-fired power. As Bjorn Lomborg, an acknowledged world authority on climate change, said, climates do change. But that's entirely different from the hoax that is global warming. As Bjorn Lomborg says, and I quote, concerned activists want the world to abandon fossil fuels as quickly as possible, but it will mean slowing the growth that's lifted billions out of poverty and transformed the planet. Now listen to this. Lomborg says, it turns out that humanity will be much better off, including in Africa, in a scenario of high fossil fuel use than it would be even if we succeeded in achieving a low CO2 world. As I said, Australian governments and its so-called leaders still swallow this global warming nonsense. Indeed, don't I know it? You're vilified from one end of the earth to the other if you dare to challenge this damaging stupidity. We were told last week the Australian Energy Market Operator has warned East Coast households and businesses are facing an even higher risk of blackouts. Their words. This is around the corner. Quote, any energy shortfalls are a serious risk to productivity, jobs and living standards. Well, who's telling us this? The CEO of the Australian Energy Market Operator. The lady's Audrey Zibelman. She was imported from America by Malcolm Turnbull. She's a renewable energy zealot, running, it seems, her own ideological experiment with the Australian electricity market. She has said, resisting the energy transition, that is away from coal, is like trying to resist the internet. Well, that ideological stuff is all well and good, but here we are now, the victims of this delusion, almost richer in energy resources than any other country on earth, and they're telling us that blackouts are around the corner. Nothing new here. On January 25 this year in Victoria, 200,000 households were without power. Businesses were forced to shut down. Simple. There wasn't enough power to meet demand. What have we learnt? Nothing. We're now told in August that, quote, East Coast households and businesses are facing an even higher risk of blackouts. How the hell, as Richo said, how the hell can this be? We've got an abundance of coal, gas, uranium and other resources. Well, I'll tell you how it can be. Woeful management by government of our energy resources. Export coal and gas so that other countries can have cheap power. Ban nuclear energy, but export our uranium so other countries can have nuclear power. Bill Shorten went to the election wanting a 50% renewable energy target. I called it a national economic suicide note. He lost. But what have we got? Is there any person in government who's opened his or her mouth, state or federal, and said, we will build a coal-fired power station? We will build two. But banks are refusing to lend money to the private sector for coal-fired power. Commercial blackmail based on a global warming hoax. And then we're the largest exporter of gas. $32 billion a year we get from exporting gas to a cartel of multinational companies who control the international gas market. And right now, there are people in places like Japan using our gas, and it's cheaper for them than what we pay here. In fact, we're currently paying 70% more for gas than we should be. This is economic vandalism, sponsored and endorsed by government. And what do? Well, I'll tell you what we're doing. We're waiting till the lights go out and businesses close down. 2,459 coal mines in the world, we've got 20. And the renewable energy zealots want none. One of my listeners got it right last week, Jim, when he uttered the frustration we all feel. And he wrote to me and he said, Alan, bring on the blackouts. The sooner, the more, the better. The inconvenience will be worth it, if only to ram home the stupidity of the entire renewable and climate change hoax and of the blowing up of perfectly good coal-fired power stations. Well, as I said in a piece that I wrote today in Sydney's Daily Telegraph, the overwhelming bulk of quiet Australians are nodding their heads in agreement.